My name's Jessie Beckett-Parr. I'm the Chief Program Officer for CCOF. Thank you all for joining us today. And if you didn't hear before, our little warm up is you can put your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. And we'd love to know this Earth Week, what part of nature are you connecting with recently? So bodies of water, plants, pollinators. I see somebody's learning about bonsai. That's Jennifer. We've got birds and migrating. Ooh, migrating birds through Lincoln, Nebraska. Awesome. Turkeys. Yes, there's a pack of turkeys on my street and they love to intimidate the cars. Like they'll fully slow down traffic. They're like, cannot go anywhere. So CCOF's mission is to promote organic agriculture for a healthy world. We do this through education, certification, advocacy, and promotion. And today, the CCOF Foundation brings you the 2025 Earth Day virtual tea time in partnership with Traditional Medicinals. So I said earlier, my name's Jessie Beckett-Parr. I'm the Chief Program Officer for CCOF. That means I oversee our 501c3 foundation, which does education and grant making. And I also oversee our advocacy as we advocate on the state and federal level for organic producers. So today we're going to learn more about the CCOF Foundation's Future Organic Farmer Grant Program, as well as the Traditional Medicinals Community Outreach Program. And we're going to hear directly from one of our grantees who hails from the island of Oahu in Hawaii. And since 2014, the CCOF Foundation has partnered with groups like Traditional Medicinals to grant more than $1 million in education grants to farmers like Jacklyn. And we have other grant programs as well, but for our scholarship program, we've given away over $1 million to folks like Jacklyn who want to become organic farmers. So I would love to introduce Taryn, who is our Chief Science Officer at Traditional Medicinals. And I'd love for Taryn to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself and also what part of the natural world you have been connecting with lately.
Oh, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm Taryn Forrelli. I'm a naturopath by training, but I've been working in the dietary supplement industry for over 20 years. I have been with Traditional Medicinals for a little over 3 years now, and as Chief Science Officer, I oversee innovation, quality, and R&D. And so, yeah, what have I been connecting with lately? I love this question. It's bringing up the color green for me because I live in Marin County, California. And right now, the hills are just so green. They are like Technicolor green. And it's just reminding me of this cycle of renewal, of just the energy that the plants produce from the sun, from just the metabolism, the vitality. And as these plants are waking up, I find myself eating a lot of green plants. The asparagus and the peas are going off at the farmer's market. I've been kind of wild harvesting some nettle and dandelion greens. And, you know, in traditional Chinese medicine, green is actually the color that is associated with the liver. And things like these greens help to wake up the liver, and the liver gives qi, kind of puts that energy out into our body. And we switch from our kind of winter yin state to this more spring and then eventually summer yang-like state. And then the one other thing that I've been thinking about in association with green is, again, the liver associated actually with the eyes and TCM. And when you eat more greens, usually they have a lot of lutein in them, and that also helps your vision. So everything is brighter and looking more vibrant, and I'm feeling really energized by all that. That, of course, bleeds into, I would say, my work at Traditional Medicinals. And I'll just provide a little background for anyone that doesn't know traditional medicinals, but we have been a part of the industry for 50 years now. We're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. And I get to work at this company that is very committed to promoting active connection to plant medicine in service of people and the planet. So we have 60 plus teas in supplements as well, not just teas, but in the market that really blend traditional knowledge and modern science. And as a purpose-led company, we're really looking to lead systemic change in the world. And whether that's at the level of the healthcare system, where by giving people access to organic herbal medicine options, we're supporting their health, or working at the level of the source communities, where we are basically through our commitment to fair and organic, making sure that we're taking care of the people and the planet. This is the type of work that really I feel deeply connected to and I feel good about. And because we do this work at scale, being the second largest tea company in the US, it's something that really does have an impact. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and traditional medicinals, just to kind of set up the scene here today.
Thanks so much for that, Taryn. And I think most people don't understand the scale that traditional medicinals is operating on. So I just want to uplift that you all are the second largest tea company in the United States. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. Yeah, we kind of took that position in the last year or so. And what that means is that, people are drinking a lot of herbal tea. They are choosing herbal tea like more than black and green tea in many cases. So that's a really beautiful thing. And our founder, Drake Sadler, likes to remind people that because we sell 780 million, or we produce, I should say, 780 million tea bags a year. When you break it down to the number of people that are drinking traditional medicinals tea, it's about 2,000 cups every minute. So
that is awesome. That's so much tea.
Yeah.
And you really think, when I consider like the normal American population, I really think of people as like caffeine drinkers primarily. So what you're saying is people are drinking more herbal tea, more and more herbal tea.
More and more herbal tea. Yeah, we are actually driving growth in the tea category.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you for setting that up. I look forward to learning more through this discussion. I wanted to take a minute to introduce Jacklyn. Jacklyn Polaco is a CCOF Future Organic Farmer grantee, and she began the training in a beginner farmer training program called Go Farm Hawaii. I encourage everybody to look it up. They're based on the island of Oahu, and Jacklyn started this program in 2024 with support from the CCOF Foundation. And she is now farming a very small farm, which we look forward to hearing more about. And we're really grateful to have supported you, Jacklyn. So do you want to just, say a little bit about yourself? And if you can talk to us a little bit about the part of the natural world you're vibing with. You're in Hawaii, so it could be very different from what's happening out here on the west coast of the US.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, I am in week 5 of my little CSA on my micro farm. It's like 1/8 of an acre, so that means 5,000 square feet of growing space. But with that, I'm still able to hold a small CSA. So I'm kind of getting my footing in farming. So I've been harvesting every Saturday morning, and I was telling some folks earlier, like we've had some thunderstorms rolling through in the last week. Thankfully, Saturday morning was just a light passing shower coming through as I was just beginning to harvest. And that brought this like gorgeous double rainbow that emerged right over my plot as I was harvesting. So that was very awe-inspiring, and I'm glad that I had some like fellow incubators on site to share that moment with. And it brings me to waterways, which I think is really what I've been reflecting on lately, and that connection between like the mountains, the soil, and the sea. So I feel really lucky that I'm in a place where I can like see a storm cloud roll in towards the mountain, and if the rains are falling heavier, I can see waterfalls begin to form, and we have a little stream beneath our house, so can see the levels of that rise and fall as the rain subsides or it grows a little stronger. And then going over to the field and like feeling the soil and seeing how nutritious that rainfall feels on the crops, even in comparison to ag water, and taking that back to the ocean and thinking about the cycle restarting and reflecting on food in the middle of that and how directly it's all impacted by these natural systems at play.
Yes, I love that image. And I've been in relationship with other folks in Hawaii. We have a partnership with Ma'o Organic Farms, which is the largest certified organic farm in Hawaii. And I learned from them about the Hawaiian indigenous concept of the watershed. I'm going to butcher the Hawaiian name for it, but it's Ahuapaua. No, there we go. See, I told you I was going to butcher it. But it's this idea of like cutting down from the mountains into the sea, right? Because you have these volcanic islands. And yeah, I've been very moved to learn about traditional watershed stewardship from the indigenous cultures in Hawaii. And when I'm not speaking, I will put a link to the chat so people can learn how to pronounce that word on their own and learn more about it. So Jacklyn, if you could tell us just a little bit more about Go Farm Hawaii and the structure of the education that you received, not just the farming, but also there's like a significant business planning component, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Go Farm is a really incredible program that trains any level of agricultural backgrounds, anyone who's interested in farming to get started in growing food. And they teach you in a lot of different ways, which I appreciate. So there's a few stages of the program that you move through with the cohort and you're guided by your coach. You start out in kind of an exploratory phase where you're visiting different farms on Oahu or whatever island you're participating from. And you're seeing different scales of agriculture, people who are at different stages in their farm journeys. Like we visited one who had just started within the last couple months. We were planting the first trees on their soil, and then others who have a full agritourism business and have a cafe and a shop and tour rides and a full, fruiting orchard. So we got to see the full spectrum of agriculture, and it brought up concepts of our food system and how needed it is to replenish the farmer population here in Hawaii. Our food system is quite fragile at the moment, so they're really trying to bolster that local food production. If you want to keep going past that exploratory phase, you can choose to go on to the Ag Excel portion, which is where you're actually stewarding a 1/16 of an acre. And while you're learning how to like start a farm, including everything from irrigation and soil systems and germinating and transplanting those crops, the maintenance, the harvest, all of that you're learning in a classroom setting. You're doing it on the field with your coach and your cohort on Saturdays, and then you're doing it in your own plot in your own time as well to actually host a small CSA during the class. So I graduated from that last June and still loved it and wanted to continue with the program, which brings me to the incubator portion where I'm leasing land from the program and have started my own small farm business. So I'm sticking with the CSA model for now because I really love that connection to the people who are eating my food and being able to interact with them directly. And I've just gotten started in the last few weeks in actual production. So everything is set up infrastructure wise, and I hope it stays with heavy winds, but we're rolling through it. So, and I'd say the most incredible thing about Go Farm is like the community that it connects you to. And yeah, they give you the business training, they give you traditional agricultural history. They give you like ag policy in the modern day and how to get more involved in representing farmer voices, and then marketing and operating a business as well, and they offer like cost analysis and other resources through the Go Farm business team to help you.
That is awesome. Thanks for the explanation of that structure. And it sounds like it's scaled, right? So they have you come in through an educational program, and then they have you start really small, and then they have you kind of add on things as you're able to have that capacity. Shauna, I think you can let go of the PowerPoint that's just spotlighted on us if you want. It's maybe too much to look at, like all the things
You got
together.
it.
That's Shauna. She's invisible but very here. Jacklyn, there was an extra question from Carmen in the chat about land access in Hawaii. What is land access like for farmers in Hawaii?
It is a challenge. Honestly, there's a lot of ag land that food isn't necessarily being grown on, but there's also a lot of movements in the works, and our food system is something that's being very talked about and recognized at large right now, with an understanding that we rely so heavily on imports and that this fragility can't be ignored. So there's a lot of action being taken to try and make farming a bit easier here in Hawaii. Go Farm in particular, I'm very grateful, will work with you in your years as an incubator or as you're going through the course to identify what your long-term goals are, and they're using their resources with the state and everything else to try and connect you to long-term lease opportunities.
Beautiful. Super smart. Yeah, it's an all hands on deck situation for sure. I would love to turn now to Taryn. We were talking about accessibility of farmland with Jacklyn. Can you talk about what are some of the biggest challenges in making herbal wellness accessible, and how can industry leaders collaborate to remove these barriers?
Yeah, I think the first barrier is that many of us have really just been disconnected from our herbal traditions that our ancestors practiced. Herbal medicine is a oral tradition that has really been passed down generation to generation. Traditionally, we have captured a lot of it now in writing, of course, but yeah, a lot of people learned herbal medicine from their elders, from their grandmothers and mothers and community members, and a lot of that has really been replaced with modern medicine. And that said, we know that 80% of the world's population still uses herbal medicine and traditional healthcare practices as kind of their primary form of medicine. So it is still very alive in the world. And again, here in the US, it is often labeled alternative or complementary, but we do see that about 25 to 35% of the population do use herbal medicine regularly. And we are seeing significant growth and interest in herbal medicine. So that's great. We feel really excited about that as plant people and traditional medicinals. But as people become interested in using herbal medicine and really re-engaging with these ancient practices, they sometimes run into barriers around cost, around, just geography, like where you live, you might not have access to high quality herbs. And herbal medicine is only as good as the quality of the herbs that it's made from. And then there's also, again, because of the knowledge, lineage has been kind of broken in many cases. It's like, where do you get the trustworthy information? Well, social media has been really interesting for promoting or encouraging people to try herbal medicine, but sometimes, is it accurate? Is it coming from someone who is an expert? And so for traditional medicinals, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about some of those barriers and how we look to make herbal medicine more accessible. From a cost perspective, the really amazing thing about a cup of tea is that it's a really simple entry point to herbal medicine. It doesn't really require a lot of preparation or knowledge around medicine making. And certainly, you know, there are products out there that offer convenience, you know, and they've been more, let's just say, produced or processed in such a way that it, you know, maybe you have a capsule or a tincture or even a gummy, but yeah, for about 50 cents for a cup of tea, you know, you do have access to herbal medicine through what Traditional Medicinals offers with our tea. And the other thing is, even if, you know, again, based on where you live, you might not have access to herbs or an apothecary, but you can actually access a box of Traditional Medicinals tea at pretty much every major grocer retailer in the US, including Walmart and Amazon. So the fact that you can have herbalist formulated, certified organic, medicinal grade herbs in your life at a cost accessible price point is something that we think is really kind of moving the needle, so to speak, on accessibility. But in order for us to do that, we actually have to build access to the herbs themselves. And so what has made Traditional Medicinals really, I think, special in the marketplace, and you know, is a testament to all the work that we've done over the 50 years, is the fact that we have direct access and transparency all the way through our supply chain, all the way back down to the farmer level or the wild collectors. So these sourcing communities, in order to ensure that we have access to make all this tea available, we really have to like nurture those relationships. And sometimes we have to like ask them to make these organic, you know, pharmacopoeial or medicinal grade herbs, because they weren't doing that. And some examples of those relationships are like our relationship with Trout Lake Farm, which is up in Washington State. We've been working with them for nearly as long as we've been in business. And we're really proud to have our organic echinacea and a lot of our organic peppermint come from them. So these relationships, over in India, our organic senna that goes in our famous Smooth Move tea, you know, we've had to keep those relationships going now for 20 years. And so that's where we are really kind of investing at that source community level to make sure that we can bring these products to the consumer to help meet them where they're at in their herbal journey. And then we also do education. We're, again, fortunate to have so many herbal experts here at TM, and we want to share that knowledge. And so that's just, again, some of the ways that we are helping to expand access, and by partnering with the organic farmers, educating consumers, and then making it affordable. That's something that we're just really committed to.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love and have witnessed TM's relationship building capacity and your all's strong and long-term vision for making sure that you've got deep roots in the soil in many different places, because you have suppliers all over the world, right?
Yeah, we source roughly 120 herbs from about 40 different countries. So we have boots on the ground, visiting those farms, again, making sure that the people are being taken care of, being paid fair wages. We were really early in the Fair Wild program, early adopters of that, and we're very involved in Fair for Life now, and working to get at least 80% of our supply chain to that fair status by 2030.
Yeah. And for folks not familiar with the fair status, it's a fair trade, correct? Yes.
It is. It is. It's also just a holistic, it's a holistic program that looks at not just how much they're being paid, but, you know, the community welfare and the welfare of the surrounding ecology there. So it's kind of taking that organic and then adding in kind of the welfare of the whole environment there and the people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, speaking of welfare for communities, I'd love to turn back to Jacklyn now and just have you talk more about why you choose to farm to feed your community and yeah, how you feel about feeding humans over there. Maybe you can integrate why you're passionate too about food as medicine. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think I might take it way back to where I struck passion for food to begin with. I grew up food insecure in a small family with my single dad and my brother. There was a lot of mental illness in my family, and at times, he struggled to hold a job down. So often our diet was like top ramen and boxed mashed potatoes and rice-a-roni, and that's pretty much exclusively what I ate for most of my upbringing. And due to a number of different reasons, by the time I was about 16 years old, I became really sick. And I felt like physically and mentally like I couldn't get out of bed every day. And I felt really weak and dizzy and disoriented. And I knew innately that I had to start eating fresh food. Not that that would be the only thing that I had to do, but I knew that that was going to be a source of healing for me. And so it was around that time that I could drive to a grocery store and start to get myself some produce and cook for myself. And I formed that relationship with myself and found it to be like this incredibly powerful act of self-love and just like that mindful experience of preparing food and then feeling the difference in your body stuck with me ever since then, and that continues to be something that I treasure each day. And so at around that time too, I started to think about food systems at large, taking it back from the individual level and to think about how our relationship societally with food and the way that we produce and consume it shapes the way that we operate and even our ideas. And I just contemplated on the effects of food throughout everything that we do. And I just really struck passion with food systems and food kind of at like the epicenter of so many things that I was interested in, between like art and culture and our relationship to the environment and community. So I continued to explore that, but I didn't necessarily see myself as a farmer. But I kept trying to delve deeper into the world of ecology and hit some roadblocks not having a STEM background. So seeing a program like Go Farm that would kind of train the person from seed and meet you with wherever you were at felt like that was exactly what I had been looking for. And I always knew that I wanted to learn how to grow food. And I quickly realized that I love growing food for other people. So I went from like, maybe I'll have a garden that I feed myself with to like, I actually love feeding my community too. And having customers that can come back to me and say that like, they, don't you normally shop at a farmer's market? They've never heard of a CSA before. They don't know what some of the produce is that are in the bags, but they're excited to try it. And they're like branching out into cooking for their families and are like trying new recipes. That just is so fulfilling to me and feels really healing given my own background. Not something that I take for granted.
Thank you for that work and thanks for sharing your journey. I think for many of us, food is so personal, right? Whether you grow up in a household where your kitchen was stocked with produce or whether you didn't. And I think many of us on the call are reclaiming that for ourselves in a lot of different ways. That's how we get interested in organic. That's how we get passionate. And I just appreciate you sharing your pathway. And I'm loving your 16-year-old self. I'm like, hell yeah, you learned how to drive and you went and bought produce. I'm like, God willing, that's my daughter too. Like I have a 10-year-old. I don't think that when she learns how to drive, she's gonna be like, produce is what I want to like. And that's my goal. So yeah, just good on you for becoming that person and for figuring out what your body needed and listening to that and then learning not only just how to acquire it, but also go out and grow it and then give it to other people, sell it to other people. Like that is full system transformational healing right there. So thank you. I wanted to say that CCOF, we believe really strongly that food is medicine. It's part of how we talk about and what we work towards at CCOF. So I mentioned earlier that I get the privilege of playing backstop to our policy team. We have 5 people who do state and federal advocacy on behalf of organic farmers. And a lot of what we're pushing right now at the state level in California is a food is medicine agenda. We work with partners like the Ceres Community Project in the Northern Bay Area of San Francisco, as well as partners across the state who are looking at how do we incentivize institutional purchasing of organic. And when I say institutional, I'm really looking at hospitals and schools. How do we get large scale organic procurement into places where lots of people are? In particular, places where there's small bodies, which you can have a lot of impact, right, on young children through the school system, what they're eating. And then also hospitals, folks who are sick or folks who are ill should be eating the best produce available. They should be eating the best products available, and ones that don't have synthetic chemicals in them, right? So organic certification, you're certified organic, you're not allowed to use synthetic pesticides or synthetic herbicides or GMOs or a whole range of other things that can be really harmful for human health. So through our political action on the state and federal level, we are really supporting organic farmers getting their products out into places that they should be in front of consumers. And then on a grant making end, beyond the scholarship program, we also have a very large scale organic transition program that we've been running in coalition with various partners between Texas and Hawaii across the West. And so giving millions of dollars away and providing direct technical assistance to folks to be able to transition to organic. And we feel like as a farmer-based organization, farmer-governed, farmer-started, our best work is in the farm community. And then we meet consumers with that product, right? So we always bring the farmer voice, the farmer lens, and we get resources into the farming community so that agricultural folks can be successful, and that kind of feeds up the food chain. So I want to transition back to talking to Taryn a little bit. If you can elaborate, I mentioned at the beginning, Traditional Medicinals works with different nonprofits and that you all do kind of have a community outreach and engagement part of your business. Can you talk to us a little bit about who you're working with to advance organic education and specifically herbalism, right? Because you all are a medicinal company. And it's funny, I'm just like hearing from you. I'm like, yes, it is medicine. Tea is medicine.
Yeah.
Not just food. Tea is medicine.
They're all this, they're plants, right? Food is medicine, plants as medicine, plants are the original medicine. I think the more that we get people understanding and experiencing the benefits, like Jacklyn shared for her own story, of when you put more of this good food and good plants into your body, how it actually changes the way you feel. That is very empowering. And I think it naturally gets people wondering, well, where did they come from, or how can I get my hands on those plants? And so we actually, as part of our 50th anniversary celebration this year, we're launching a new grant program called Planting Wellness. And this is designed to increase herbal wellness to underserved communities. And we're doing this through partnership with some nonprofit partners that are going to host some local workshops where essentially our herbalists at TM are working with them to help design these programs to teach people how to grow herbs, how to harvest and preserve them, make simple herbal medicines, and then how to bring them into everyday practice. So then they can start to see that this is something that can be empowering for them in their own lives. And we're starting in New York and the Bay Area, and then expanding with mini grants next year to continue to build the program, build the resources, and share it out. And again, the goal, just like our product, but we, in our commitment to education and herbal accessibility, this is really about making herbal wellness community-led and widely accessible.
Yeah, and that is the goal, right? Of empowering people to get to know the herbs in their area and how they can grow them for themselves, right? Which is pretty brash and awesome and forward thinking of a tea company to be like, how do you get people to be empowered to be able to do this for themselves? Not most businesses are not thinking about that. They're like, how do we trap the
Yeah.
consumer into buying our product indefinitely? It's the business model, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, the cup of tea is really the entry point. We like to think of it as like it's a way that people start to come into herbal medicine, and then we invite them to deepen into those relationships with the plants and their own personal journey. And that can take a lot of different forms. But we hope that people ultimately fall in love with the plants themselves.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You mentioned kind of this generational aspect of plant knowledge. And so many people in the US move, right?
Mm,
They move
yeah,
for work, they move for
yeah.
family reasons, they move for economic reasons. And when you get up and move from the East Coast to the West Coast or from the middle of the country to Hawaii, you're in an entirely different bioregion. And the plants and the weeds are totally different, right? And this, I am fortunate enough to be many generations in the place that I live, and I know what weeds I can pick up and make into a tea. And that's something that takes time, like knowing what's okay and what's not okay. So I am excited to learn more about what Traditional Medicinals is doing to empower people with local botanical knowledge, because it is so important and empowering for people to be able to self-identify and then concoct their own brews.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can start in your own backyard oftentimes.
Absolutely. Or on the sidewalk. I mean, plantain is found across the United States. It came with European settlers to the United States, and followed the wagon trails across all the way to California, and it is found in almost every town. You can find it. It loves like little cracks in sidewalks, and it's one of the best, most useful. Now it's non-native, but it is kind of native. It's naturalized.
Yeah.
It's a naturalized weed.
Beautiful.
Um, so Jacklyn, Taryn was talking to what they've got kind of facing forward. Can you close us out by sharing your plans for continuing your organic education and career? Like, where do you see yourself moving forward?
Yeah, I definitely see myself hopefully growing food forever. I see kind of Go Farm as like, in a way, the start of the rest of my life, because now that I've started doing this, I certainly don't want to stop, even on whatever scale that may be. So I'm always continuing to seek out different educational opportunities, always within an organic framework, but specifically like regenerative farming and prioritizing soil health and understanding soil and all of its complexities, and how to put that at the forefront of the way that I run my farm is super important to me. So considering different kinds of coursework in the next few years, in addition to hopefully scaling up my farm and potentially finding a place to grow some longer term crops too, and invest in the land that way, some trees and an agroforestry system.
Beautiful. My experience is that trees grow very well in Hawaii, as does everything else. It's like you must be armed with machete. It's very warm. A lot of rain.
Yeah, specifically where I'm farming, it's like if you my landlord, I live on ag land, and there's about 9 acres over here, and sometimes he's talked about clearing some out without having an immediate plan for that swath, and like within a few months, like the jungle just kind of creeps right back in, and it's like nothing ever happened. So
Yeah, pretty amazing.
yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we wish you the best on your journey, Jacklyn, and we're excited to hear from you along the path as you continue to mature in your career. And this is a good opportunity to plug. We do accept charitable donations to the Future Organic Farmer Grant Fund. So Shauna will put the link in the chat, and we are accepting donations now for the Future Organic Farmer Grant Fund. We plan to give away about $125,000 this year, but we will give more away if we raise more. And you're welcome to reach out to me or to Shauna Rogers or to Willow Array. We're the folks that are stewarding the fundraising for future organic farmers. I think we can transition now into Q&A. I saw that Carmen had a question about explaining organic certification. So I can answer that first, and then if people have additional questions, you're welcome to put it in the chat, or you're welcome to just come off of mute, because this is not a webinar format. It's a whatever the other format is where you can unself-mute. So yeah, talking about organic certification. So Carmen, I'm curious to hear what type of operations you have. If you have a farm, if you're running a greenhouse, if you have a processor handler. Organic certification is specific to any of those things. And you can come off mute if you want to.
All right, thank you so much for hosting this forum.
Oh, Carmen, I can't quite hear you. Maybe is it my audio or is it anybody else? You're kind of like coming
The
in and out a
audio
bit.
is pretty choppy.
Okay. Is this any better?
It is not.
It's not. So maybe just put it in the chat and I'll talk about general resources for organic certification. So CCOF certifies about 5,000 operations right now across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Traditional Medicinals is one of those. So some of them are quite large and have many things going on, and some of them are quite small. So all farm scales are welcome under the organic certification umbrella. We have many different educational events that are located in communities across the US. So if you go to our website, you can go to our calendar, and we have office hours every week that's run by Jamie Collins, who's a longtime certified organic farmer, and also she was an inspector for a couple of decades, and she is wonderful about answering your questions about organic certification. So it's on our calendar. It happens every week. It's on Zoom, and you're welcome to go there and ask a question. But basically, you create an organic system plan, which is a long document that says how you're going to manage your organic system. That's the same if you're in like a cracker company. You're going to talk about what your organic system is, like what your supply is, where it's coming from, what happens there, and how it leaves. Or if you're on a farm, it's the same idea. You got to think about organic certification like links in a chain. It's what happens before it comes onto the farm, what happens on the farm, and then what happens when it leaves the farm. And you need records of every stage of the journey of that product. And then once you fill out an organic system plan, it comes into the CCOF office, and we have a whole lot of certification reviewers who will go through that plan and flag anything that doesn't look like it's going to work. And they'll come back to you and say, hey, you got to change this part, or no, that's not an approved input. You're not allowed to use that, or whatever it is. And then once they give you that revision and you make the changes that you need to within your organic system plan, they'll send out an inspector, and the inspector will take a look and make sure that what you said is happening matches up to what's actually happening on the ground. And then that inspection gets reviewed, and then you get a certificate. And there's some other touch points, but that's like the basics. I'm also going to, if there's questions for other folks, I will look up our resources page for organic transition, and I'll put some links in the chat that you can find more documentation online. All right, so it looks like John had a question for Jacklyn. How many participants do you have in your CSA right now, and are you operating year round?
Yeah, I just popped an answer into the chat, so I'm keeping it really small because this was my first iteration of the CSA on this new plot. There was a lot of variables to figure out, so I figured the smallest space that I can kind of test all of these different new methods that I've introduced, the better, and then I can iterate and grow a little bit each time. So I plan on having little CSA sessions throughout the year, probably about 5 per year. So my next one will be in July, and I plan to take on a few more folks. But yeah, right now I'm still farming part-time and I work another job full-time. So I'm balancing my time with that, but I hope to tip the scales in favor of farming within the next few years.
You are not alone. So many CCOF certified farms have other careers. And that's actually true of most farms in America, that they have somebody on the farm in the family who's working off the farm. And there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. And I don't think we have time to get into them today. It's complicated. It has to do with how much people pay for food and how we value food as part of our household budget here in the United States, as opposed to other places. Hopefully within our lifetimes that will change and that people can make full-time livings on farms. All right, other questions? Oh, okay. So Genevieve have a question. So I know TM recently launched something called the Plant Wisdom Collective.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you, Genevieve. We are launching this in May officially. We've been working on it quite a bit, and we've been excited about it. But essentially, this is a offering of free herbal education to consumers, and it will be available through our website. We're taking people through kind of the basics of herbalism and, what are the foundations of, why it exists and why it's so important and how it can empower people. We're talking about herbal quality, going deep on what that means. I kind of referenced it matters where your herbs come from, right? And how they're grown and all of that, kind of deepening around what that means to have a medicinal grade herb versus something that might just be food grade. And then also how to start, understanding the different herbs. It's very accessible. Again, it's like a starting point, but we feel like it's important as part of our mission to educate, to have this offering out there. So thanks for asking about that, and it will be available real soon.
Thank you for that. Other questions out there?
Actually, I'm going to pop up. Hi, this is Shauna from the CCOF Foundation. I'm really curious, Jacklyn and Taryn, like what your favorite food right now as medicine is for you personally, whether that's tea or something else.
Well, I mentioned nettle in the beginning, and I always have a strong affinity for nettle, and am always looking for ways to get creative with it in the kitchen. Nettle pestos and soups. And so I did recently make actually a combination of nettle and lemon balm. The lemon balm is also going off in my little patch of garden, not quite a farm, not even close. But those are two that are very near and dear to my heart, and green.
Yeah, I think I would go with different varieties of basil for me right now. I just did a huge Italian basil harvest that I made a lot of pesto that I've been just using on everything. And then I have a lot of Tulsi and holy basil growing in my plot too. So I have been tinkering with making some teas, probably not quite as delicious as some of Taryn's mixes, but that's been fun. My cat also just opened the door and barged in. If anyone happens to see a tail going by, but
Awesome. Thank you for that. So Taryn mentioned that TM is working with plants. Are our medicinal fungi friends also involved? Oh, yes. Are you all working with mushrooms?
A little bit. We have a reishi that we work with, and actually we just launched a new product called Stressie's Immune, and it features reishi. And so, those products are designed to bring adaptogens into people's lives to help them be more resilient to stress, and then also to strengthen the immune system, which is reishi does an excellent job of that. But we're not anti-fungi. We love fungi. It's just most of our ingredients are pure botanicals. So
Thanks for that. And Hannah put in a great nettle pesto recipe. Thank you for that. All right. Well, I think this seems like a good time to end. This is lunchtime, at least on the West Coast. So I think maybe people, yes. Carmen, there is the information on the training program. It's in the chat just above where you are. So if you scroll up a bit, you'll find the steps to get certified and then also resources for organic transition. And if you have additional questions about that, I'll put my email in the chat and you're welcome to reach out to me and I can connect you to additional resources. So thanks everyone for taking time to be here. Thank you, Taryn and Jacklyn, especially for sharing your wisdom and a little bit about your stories. And I'm just inspired by what you all are doing out there in the world. And it's really great to meet other humans that are on a similar path out there, making things happen in the world in different places. So thank you all for taking the time to share. And yeah, wish you a beautiful day and a great Earth Week.
You too.
Thanks so much.
Enjoyed this very much. Thank you.